Hello and welcome to The Side Woo. This is your host, Thibaut, helping you navigate the wild and mysterious path that is the creative life. Join me as I ask our guests about the tools they use to help them survive in the creative wilderness. So hello and welcome, Side Wooers, to the latest episode of The Side Woo. This is Thibaut. I am here in Santa Fe, which if you're following along on my Art Date Substack, you will know why and what. So feel free to go there and read the backstory. But I'm really excited today because I'm here with Mia Weiner, who is an LA-based artist. And hello, Mia.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to read a little bit about Mia, just for everybody's edification. So her bio is, responding to the historical textile, Mia Weiner creates intimate declarations that explore identity, gender, and the psychology of human relationships. She hand weaves each tapestry in her Los Angeles studio, which you can see behind her there. I love that. We're going to get a little studio tour. And Mia received her MFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, her BFA from Maryland Institute College of Art. She was awarded the V&A Parasol Prize at the V&A Museum in London. That's really cool. Okay, we need to talk about that. Her work has been exhibited internationally, including in New York, London, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, and Rome. Weiner is a Yaddo Fellow, and her work is in the permanent collection of the Kunstmuseum Den Haag, Netherlands. Have you been there to see your work?
I haven't. It was acquired very recently, so.
Oh, cool. And did they like invite you to see it or anything? Like, did they do any kind of like event around it or?
There will be. Not yet.
Oh, cool.
The museums take a minute to, what's the word I'm looking for? When they acquire a work to get it into the catalog, basically.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I've had one piece like acquired by a museum and they're not open yet, but they're supposedly opening in the fall. And I was messaging on social media because I saw they had created a new account. And I was like, oh, well, that's so exciting that you're opening. Like, I'd love to get an invite because I'm one of the artists in your collection. And they were like, sorry, who is this? They were so weird. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you have a lot of artists in the collection and you're maybe not giving out special invites to like be I don't know. I don't know if that's normal.
Yeah,
It might be.
this is a really large museum in The Hague. I'm really thrilled to be part of the collection.
Yeah.
And I met the curators when I had a show in Amsterdam.
Cool.
6 months ago now?
Oh, okay. And you were doing a show there, or did you have like a residency? How did you end up in Amsterdam?
A solo booth at Unseen, which is a fair in Amsterdam,
Cool.
alongside a 2-person show that was up. So that's how we met. And then I was really excited when they acquired the work, and now we'll see what happens.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Well, congratulations on that. Okay, well, so to kick off the Side Woo line of questioning, what sign are you? I know we talked about this when I first met you, but I'm totally blanking.
Well, this just got more complicated, but I'm an Aquarius.
Wait, how did it get more complicated?
I was just in India where I had a
Vedic
astrology reading, and it turns out in Vedic astrology, I'm a Capricorn, which really shifted everything I thought about my identity.
Yeah.
Because I really identify as a hardcore Aquarius.
Okay, I'm going to pause it. I think I know why we don't have echoes, because the echo cancellation is off, which means it like mutes one of us while we're talking.
Okay.
Like if you're talking, I get muted, so there can't be. So I'm going to just. Okay, we took a little break for tech support, but we're back. Okay, so yeah, Vedic astrology, if you've never, like as a Westerner, if you're like all of a sudden exposed to it midlife, it does kind of fuck you up.
Yeah.
So you were saying you actually really identify with the Capricorn of Vedic astrology. Is that what you're saying? Or
It was, I'm in Western astrology, I am an Aquarius sun, a Taurus rising, and a Sagittarius moon. Um,
okay.
so now in Vedic astrology, I was just told I'm really a Capricorn sun, an Aries rising, and a Scorpio moon, which is
Hmm.
some
But
of it.
they kind of mean a little bit different because I'm a Scorpio and then in Vedic, I'm a Libra. And I see it, and I do have a lot of Western Libra in my chart, so it doesn't feel like so out of left field. But Virgo and Capricorn, there's some shared interests there. I don't know. I mean, did it ring true at all? Like, did you have a full reading or?
I did. It was really a lot of things rang really true, especially when they sort of talked about the past when we started.
Oh,
Talking
okay.
about my childhood that were never sort of explained, that like really were
Oh.
specific and intense. And
Mm.
so I was sold once we started.
Okay. And had you ever had a reading of your birth chart in Western astrology like that? Oh, you had. And they didn't get into all that.
So it was a very different reading than I've had before, feeling wise.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I know like your moon is supposed to be about your childhood, like in your relationship to your mother up till like age 7.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of the things I've heard Jessica Lanyadu, my like by proxy astrology teacher. I feel like most of what I've learned has been through her. But um and your Sagittarius moon in Western. So, my sister is that, and I remember looking it up because I'm a Capricorn moon. My mom was a Capricorn moon. Her sister is a Capricorn moon, and we're all Scorpio rising, including my sister. So there's like a lot of shared commonality, except for my sister who has this Sag moon. And I remember looking it up, and it's like no one can tell you what to do or like teach you how to do things when you already think you know more than them.
Yeah.
Like, and that was like the description of like the Sag moon is like, no one can parent you when you already know better than they do, kind of thing. So I don't know if that rings true for you, but
Sort of does, though. I was surprised that the Scorpio moon was the only thing that really hit in the
oh, okay.
chart. I was like, oh, this I somehow understand. I'm not sure how yet, still fully. This was like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. What did they say about it?
We actually didn't get very deep into that part. But
Oh,
when they
okay.
said that, it was like, okay. Like this, I can
Yeah.
roll. The rest, we'll see.
And my moon in Vedic is like you will gain everything and then you'll lose everything multiple times in your lifetime. So I was like, I don't really want that. Thank you, though.
That's good though.
I
I know it's
guess.
we're always like having to release all the time. Like that never stops, that surrender. So it's nice that you
Yeah.
like feel each time, you know?
Yeah. But it's like one of those kind of militia or malevolent placements in Indian astrology. Like you don't really want it. But yeah, that's fair enough. That is
Next,
a very Scorpio thing to say, like talking about death and rebirth.
like, but you just keep going. That part's really cool because
Totally.
better each time, you know?
And what's your background with woo woo other than like a kind of interest in astrology? It sounds like
Yeah.
you were into Reiki, right?
Yeah, I did 5 levels of Reiki training. So
Whoa.
technically I'm a grandmaster.
So you can
Reiki,
shoot lasers out your hand. Is that what happens by the
yeah,
end?
eyes too.
Out of your eyes.
Yeah, no, I did all my Reiki trainings. I finished what, 2, 3 years ago now. Um, but I was brought up around meditation, and I didn't really personally feel attached to it until much later. I think as the rebellion of growing up in the household with it, um, you know, I my mom
Like
would
you were forced into meditation. at a young age or something?
Really, but I grew up in a really academic, intellectual Jewish family that also, my mother's a Hanuman devotee, which is the monkey god in Hinduism, and
Okay.
uh, which Ram Dass is also very well known as a follower of, and used to know him and was very much part of a community with him, with his teachings. And so when I grew up with that, I think because we were also like that intellectual Jewish academic family, I kind of just thought we were using like a lot of brain space on things we could use for other things. It felt like a
Oh,
lot of philosophy, a lot of like sort of academia. And I was like, why don't we just like discover a new gene? Before I sort of had my moment where,
wait, how old were you when were thinking that?
I don't know, like middle school, high school, sort of growing
Why
up,
don't we just discover a new gene, mom and dad? Like, this is so lame.
what could be possible instead
Yeah.
of realizing, oh, that is what is happening right now and possible, even though I don't see it on this plane. And so it took a while for me to have that aha moment. And basically, once my eyes opened and I saw the light, I dove in as hard and fast as I could to all sorts of different modalities of meditation, energy work. I just like wanted to explore and see what connected with me. Um, so yeah,
And
then
what did seeing the light look like for you?
I had a full out of body experience. I was with someone who basically we had a full energetic experience where we energetically connected and had an out of body experience. I literally saw lights and a couple
Wait,
other.
back up. So, like, what was the context? I feel like you need to tell this whole story if you feel comfortable.
I was like, I think this is enough. This part, because I was like, what was really important was, to be fair, I was in a really stressful moment in my life. I was going through a really difficult breakup, and this was with a new partner I had just started seeing. Um, the world was, it felt really difficult. It's sort of this bleak moment in my life.
Hmm.
Uh, totally stressed out. And when this happened, I thought I lost my mind. Like I totally thought I cracked. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I pushed too far. Turns out it's gonna be sick to be crazy, but like I can't tell anybody what just happened.
So
I think
you were like meditating with your partner or something and like ended up having this like astral experience or
um taken psychedelics before, but not with, I knew this person didn't dose me and I didn't just take psychedelics too, And so I was like,
okay.
what else could it be? Like I've lost it. And so when I sort of came back to my body, I very sheepishly asked my partner um, if anything happened for them, right? And they then explained exactly what I had just experienced: the lights, the same place, the same sort of astral sphere that we were on. And
And can you describe it at all or is it private? Are you
um, I think that's like that part isn't the detail that matters so much as that, like, all of a sudden someone saw the exact same thing too. And I was like, oh my God, what
yeah.
happened? And he assumed that because I had some deities around my house from like my childhood growing up, that I knew about those things, which I didn't know at all.
Mm.
I, I didn't know. Used to live at an ashram and wanted to be a monk at one point, and had just sort of like quit pretending, or had quit being a yogi and like pretending he was like a civilian, like I like to say, so he could go back to his tech job. And so we both were coming from these really different places, not knowing. So he actually had all this training and knew all about it. And I had no idea. And
Hmm.
I had no idea he knew that. And he had no idea I knew none of it. And so then started to explain to me sort of what happened. And basically I said, well, how do I do that again? What is this? And he's like, oh, well, that's you meditate. And so that's when I started meditating. Um, and then very quickly understood sort of my relationship to the universe changed and sort of the expanse of the universe. And so uh, that became a really small piece of what I was searching for. But in the beginning, it really was the seeking for this kind of like wild experience.
So
which
to kind of replicate what you had experienced the first time. Yeah. Okay. Well, without knowing more details, I think it's fair to say that it was just compelling enough for you to like believe in something bigger than the material world, essentially.
yeah, it was like all
Okay.
this just exponentially expanded in a very cosmic way. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
or more.
Cool. Well, and then it's okay. So you went into Reiki, you just like dove into like researching everything around that. And then where have you kind of landed now? Like, do you feel like you've gone through kind of your exploratory phase and you're leaning more towards certain perspectives, or is there anything that you're like kind of most interested in now that supports maybe a more civilian life as an artist, or I don't know, what are you up to now?
Um, well, with my spirituality, I think I was like took that deep dive and ran in as fast as I could. I like this intensity. I do that with a lot of things in my life.
Mhm.
Um, but then I think the lessons of meditation finally hit where you get to like slow down and you're not seeking for this thing in your being.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, it can get addicting, I think, to be seeking, and like the journey of self-improvement can be really addicting too, which
totally.
becomes like self-defeating after a while because you're always trying to be better when the whole point is to just be enough, you know?
So I'm really lucky that after what, like 4 or 5 years, I slowed down from intensive trainings and different practices,
Cool.
and have just understood how to, or have been practicing integrating it into my life in a very day to day way, instead of just searching for these things that are outside of my life.
Mhm.
Uh, but I practice bhakti yoga. Bhakti is devotion from the heart. I also am a Hanuman devotee now. And
And that's
so,
kind of going back to your roots, your
it,
family.
yeah. And so, actually, I was just in India for a little sort of pilgrimage where I was visiting my guru's ashrams um, in the northern part of India. And so, uh, that's really like it's a really devotional practice that's less about when I think people hear yoga, you think about like postures to put your body in an asana practice. And for me, it's sort of about how to live every day. Like you hear love, serve, remember, and it's like love all beings, serve all beings, and remember oneness or God or whatever you want to call that.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, and how to make that everything you do.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely didn't get that message at, the Bikram yoga studio I used to work at. Yeah, I know. I was just talking about this the other day with someone because we were talking about, like, different phases of yoga interests that we've been in and, like, how I wanna get back into it, but there was a period where I worked at the studio and would do Bikram, like, at least 3 days a week in addition to working there, which is, like, a real workout because it was in San Francisco, and the studio was on the upper floor, and the laundry room was on the bottom floor, and so after class, we would, like, take all the sweaty towels, drop them down the laundry chute, and then have to, like, carry these massive tubs of dry towels up the stairs, which was, like, 3 flights of stairs after and then so I was just, like, reminiscing about that whole experience and like the energy of people who need Bikram yoga, which is like a more extreme
Yeah, like I really
sport, which I really enjoyed it in some ways, but I think it was just also fatiguing in a way that I don't think was sustainable for me personally.
like I sometimes I love Kundalini yoga, which I know is having its own moment of people sort of re-understanding what it can be. But it's about like such intensity so much of the time. And I
Yeah.
found that like that for me too, like I stopped doing the practice because I realized I was chasing the high
Yeah,
from it.
exactly.
Like I wasn't chasing the practice. It was like what I can do with
There's
it.
like a rush in pushing yourself to the max and
Yeah.
yeah, and I think the cult aspect of the leader, the teacher training, like a lot of the teachers kind of get encouraged to have this mindset around. like be, more in shape and more, hard on your body and endure more. And it's like, yeah, that's in some ways that can be really helpful, but maybe not the most holistically spiritual mindset. But, for some people it works. Who am I to judge?
Totally. It's sort of like a friend was in my studio yesterday and we're talking about these different gurus that were coming to LA to speak.
Yeah, I
And
was a little triggered by your use of the word guru. I was like, oh, let's talk about that a little bit more, but continue. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, and there's ones that like I really don't connect with. I like to see different people who come to speak in LA just because I've been curious about who these people are and realize that like we all have different needs and different things to connect to. And like I
Uh-huh.
really connects to someone that I don't connect to at all, but realize that like both have to exist in the world. So we all have like a choice of who to connect with and how to sort of enter practices in different ways if they truly are a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think for me, the most problematic dynamics I've run into with spiritual teachers is where they don't engage with me in a way that I have as much agency as them. So I don't know what your experience has been. Like, did you like do a test run with any of your guru, people, or because I've found like I kind of would start by being really trusting and then further in, it's like, oh, they don't actually see me as an equal on my own equal, like collaborative spiritual journey where we're feeding each other. And it was always like top down. And then I had to like withdraw from that because,
Because that's
yeah,
not.
that's not real. Like we all help each other,
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've definitely been in dynamics when I was learning, especially my early meditation days, that I didn't realize because I was so new, or unbalanced or not healthy for me in the end.
Sure.
And so I left, and I'm glad I figured out to do that. But
Yeah, you might, maybe it's like part of the journey, like figuring out, oh, I don't need the other person to like go where I'm
sort of
heading.
like guru complex versus the guru too, where I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I was talking about someone who came, uh, Sri Ravi Shankar, also thought of as Guru Dev, who is Art of Living here in LA. And I went to this talk and someone at the end asked, like, how do you know if you're a guru? Like,
Mm,
when you, like, you're my guru. And he's like, I'm not a guru. Like, you're your
mm.
guru. Why are you giving your power away? Like, we're just beings. And I
Yeah.
really beautiful versus some people I've seen saying, I'm your guru and this is like what you need
Yeah.
to. But, everyone has their own path. For me, my guru, so guru means teacher, right?
Yeah.
So you can have lots of gurus, but your sat guru, like my ultimate guru, is no longer in body. So I think for me, it took a long time when I started meditating and sort of following this path to figure out what that meant for me to have
Mm.
someone.
And
Um,
by that, you mean they're dead.
so yes, that's sort
Just
of.
wanted to check. Not that I'm like, don't buy in, but I'm just like, let's be clear what we're talking about. So they're in spirit form now, and you kind of check in like by
They left
whatever.
their body. Um, so because we've we believe that like their spirits everywhere, we say it's when they left their body because they can't really die. They're
Totally. I know. I was just trying to make a joke, but I'm on board with that. I'm
no,
trying to move away from the language of loss. Like I've heard that as a way to describe it, and I like that. Yeah.
uh, well, when I first started hearing people talk it like that, I was like, what are they drinking? You know, I was
Totally. Like I don't want that Kool-Aid. Don't come near me with that.
like, I'm down with this stuff, but you're going a little hard,
Yeah,
now I'm
for
saying,
sure.
but yeah. So I think that for me was always interesting and something to reckon with, which also felt really separate from this issue of like, well, um, do I back away or interact with someone? Because I don't necessarily have someone in a physical body that is my ultimate teacher.
Hmm. And that for you works better because of what you're talking about? Or was there a point where you had someone in person and then they were like, we're working with this energy or spirit?
Meditation teachers who cross like personal boundaries.
All
You know,
right. Yeah. Okay.
how involved in my life they should have been or not, I think, and part
Mhm.
of it was me, like I let that happen.
Of
But
course.
and then I figured it out and that was a great lesson for me. Like ultimately I'm thankful that it happened that way.
Yeah. I mean, that was my experience too. It was 100% me. And then it took me, the moment of crossing the too many lines to be like, oh, right. Like all the way back there was too far, but I didn't see it until now. So now I see it.
I
Yeah.
had to learn to make boundaries somehow.
Yeah. Right. Like how many boundaries do you have to cross until you've crossed too many?
Yeah, or to
Yeah.
understand what I needed or to give myself my own power,
Mhm.
like see that instead of giving it away to people. But
Yeah. And
I'm
so I'm curious
yeah.
if that mindset and that evolution for you has played into your coming out journey at all. It sounds like based on the timeline, there is some like crossover between when you started this like spiritual exploration and coming out. Like there was somewhere in the timeline. I don't know if it was connected.
But no, strangely, I um let's see. Uh I've never thought about it quite in these terms before because my first reaction's like I always I didn't really put the two together, but I think maybe because of my spiritual practice, I was feeling more confident in my voice.
Yeah.
Um, Perhaps, but that, you know, I've always been queer. It's
Yeah.
not became, and I think
So
that,
like even before dating women, you identified as queer.
yeah, I think when I was younger, I didn't have that terminology yet,
Yeah.
you know, um, in the 90s, we
Of
didn't,
course. None of us did.
yeah. But yeah, I
Or
was,
yeah.
that, I think that,
The reason I ask is because for me it is similar to what you said. Like I wasn't deliberately connecting like my, gender sexual evolution with my spiritual journey. There was nothing within that was connected in any way. Like the spiritual education I was getting was totally different than any kind of gender studies. And like the people I was working with were even like, they weren't the most woke people, I guess I'll just say, like to be diplomatic, but there is something for me about how much time I spent alone, partly during the pandemic, and then the inward turning and the trusting, like you said, my voice, my intuition in a new way, and getting more still within myself that I think allowed for this other part of me to like open up more and be more present with it instead of it being something that was kind of always like kept in this containment, which energetically speaking, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, I think like energetically things opened up because of the work I was doing, but also I think part of the timing lines up because I was in a heterosexual marriage. And so everyone assumed,
Okay,
which doesn't always mean that,
for
and
sure.
I had dated women before that. I've
Oh,
dated
you
women.
had. Okay, I don't know why like when we were talking about it pre-interview, didn't connect that timeline. Gotcha.
Quieter, but like I said, I don't think I really ever had, like we talked about before, an official coming out. Um,
For sure.
Moments where I started talking about queerness in my work because it was coming out in my work. I was making new work in a different way. And so I started using that language. I had a girlfriend, but I never like
You
made
didn't announce it on your podcast
I
or
did
in
and
your blog?
I was dating Hannah. It was like just a simple um
Can you say that again? Sorry, you got a little cut off because of the.
I was just saying that like when that happened, I just told like my mom, I was like, oh yeah, I started dating this woman, and it just, so it wasn't really until there was an article in the LA Times that was about queer artists that like a lot of the other people knew.
That you
And
were included in.
yeah, so like that's when I started getting like calls from like cousins, like family members who
Mm.
like asking about like my coming out. And I was like, oh, this is such a strange way to do it because I'm queer. I don't wasn't particularly hiding it, but I also they didn't know anything about my life. Some of these people were reaching out anyway. And so but realized how quiet I had been about it and sort of had to like rethink what that meant for myself and like what I was hiding or not,
Mm-hmm.
what I was like scared of or not. So it's been kind of amazing. But yeah, I think everything sort of lines up together, but I'm not sure how it's related exactly directly. Especially, within energy, I think we all have a female and male energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not really that interested in a lot of lines within gender. And I think that comes out in my work and it comes out in how I think about energy spiritually. But those ideas have already always been there, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. I mean, yeah, looking at your work, I mean, on your website, you have as far back as like 2018, which that work is not as figure driven. I don't know if it is like, but you're just not showing that type of work from that series or something. But your work becomes more about the figure and is very like sex forward, I would say, and then becomes more queer, like kind of further into the pandemic you get in terms of your timeline. Yeah, and I mean, I just wanted to comment on something you said about gender as an energy. I think that's been the thing that I've kind of used as my like grounding as I've tried to kind of come to terms with like what my gender identity is I do feel like it's an like a frequency or an energy that I'm trying to align within myself and then on my external. Like, so kind of finding this harmony between the internal and the external energy. Cause I think our bodies can inhabit an energy and our souls inhabit an energy and like, and it shifts, at different times in our lives. So, I was thinking about you, like, and about my own story of like this late in life kind of shift, even if you were queer before, you shifted kind of in terms of like who you were explicitly looking to date. Um, or maybe it was just who you were attracted to. I don't know. I mean, like in the moment, do you feel like it is for you like more about the person, or did you feel like you were drawn to like a different energy or
Um, for me, I think it's about the person. And like when I was younger, I think I was, I remember like moments in college having like crushes on girls and feeling too scared to act on it,
yeah, for sure.
moments like that. But I think now I feel less of that fear.
Yeah, well, congratulations. That's great. I know. Um, well, and thinking about how that translates into your work, maybe we can kind of
Yeah.
move into your actual nitty gritty. Like if we are looking at YouTube, behind you, there is a beautiful textile that is very photo based of like, it looks like a couple of legs intertwined. There's like an enmeshment of bodies happening. And you're kind of like behind your head, which I was thinking about, the choice of material, which is like textile and the enmeshment of like the weft and the weave, right? Those are the two
The weft,
directional thing. What is it?
the weft and the warp.
That's right. And then, yeah, like how you're enmeshing the bodies to kind of mimic that interplay. And I was like, oh, you're so smart. Like, I don't know if that's intentional or if you just like kind of naturally like made that analogy through the use of material, but I was like, oh, I get it.
My practice before as a weaver was based in stitching. So I was embroidering these drawings of figures sort of meshed together in these different ways, but it was very minimal. And it was so much about drawing. And, I was really excited to weave because I wanted, when you're stitching, you're piercing the surface to create the,
Hmm.
and when you're weaving, at least the way that I'm weaving these works, the image and the structure are the same. So like the body is the body of the cloth. And
Right.
that totally shifted the way I thought about constructing image.
Say more about that. And I mean, I think it's interesting too to be depicting sheets, which are cloth, and it's like using paper to make a paper airplane or something.
Well, I'm a textile nerd. And so I always love when like textiles imitate other textiles in funny.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's prints that are made to look like knits and knits that are for like clothing that are supposed to look like a different total thing that we can do in textiles. And I kind of love these like really strange moments. But within my weavings, I think ones that have textiles in them, um, I'm sort of interested in like drape and being able to pull out that light and that sort of reference to different moments in art history and classical imagery and uh, how that can sort of also, sheets are so intimate and so are cloth. And that's partially why I work in textiles is like the intimate nature of cloth and how it's a place where we both um, have always found it, I think, globally as a place to come together as community, but also, it's our second skin, it's our clothes, it's our curtains, it's our upholstery, it's even our band-aid, it's our napkins. And we know so little about it, but we know it like this memory and intimacy for us.
Mm. I also like how the peach of this piece behind you is like kind of recalling like the peach of the cloth behind me. That was not, excuse me, that was not intentional, but I love that. Can you talk a little bit about, because I do feel like there's elements of this really photographic
Yeah.
image that are then made more sculptural, or like you insert these kind of like abstract flat blocks of color and then the thread hanging off. I don't know if this is like, is this finished, right? Yeah. So can you talk about like how then you bring it back to sculpture almost through these more kind of like the flatness, and it kind of makes you more aware of the material again instead of it being this like, image as a picture or image as like a portal.
Totally. So, I think that happens a couple different ways with the work. I start by taking photographs. I have people that models within space, often alongside my own body, that I photograph. Then they get edited and manipulated, and I figure out how to weave it. And I go to the loom, and I'm really interested in how the pixels translated um, back into cloth and what it means to make something like an image physical again through the hand, through labor, through material, through love, through energy. Because also weaving is kind of slow. It's
Yeah,
not,
right. And you're all hand weaving as
and I
well.
am weaving the work. And so,
Is But there's got to be like a computer program involved to tell
there-
you what to
yeah,
do.
so
Okay.
assisted loom, which means um,
What is it called? Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
a digitally assisted loom. It's a
Amazing.
jacquard. So, jacquard looms used to be a punch card system. So you were able to control the threads more than if you just had six petals on the ground. So it all of a sudden changed how many patterns you could weave um, if you weren't just doing it fully manually. And basically, I have one of those punch card looms, but my punch card is digital. So what I do is I make a big file that's 2,640 pixels big because I have 2,640 threads that run across my loom, which is
Oh,
right.
wild. Oh my God. Okay, YouTube, go to YouTube. She's showing it.
And basically, I make a file where it's 2,640 pixels. So every thread is a pixel, and I choose which threads go up and down every single row before I start weaving.
Hmm.
that information to my computer, which talks to my loom. And so I'm hand weaving, so I'm throwing the thread back and forth as I'm going. And
Uh-huh.
materials, I'm putting in stripes, I'm making.
So is it telling you like now do a
No, so
Oh, hold on. Sorry. I think I cut you off. Like we've got this, I'm gonna edit this out, but there's like this echo cancellation. So if
uh,
I'm even slightly talking, it cuts you off. So I'm really sorry. Continue.
basically my loom controls the threads for me based off of the map I give it every time I weave. So I only have 1 foot pedal. I press the pedal down. It lifts the threads that I sent in the map
Okay.
that I manually decided in Photoshop. And then they go down after I press the pedal again. And then they come back up for the next row. And so it's just based off of the threads lift based off of the file that I produce.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you have to have a thread in every gradient of gray, I take it.
No, so basically cloth is engineered. There's different structures in cloth. And I figure out which structures will create the different tones. And so that's what part of my map is I map these different structures together. It's not like a one-to-one bitmap of like what's light and what's dark, because that would probably be a strange tangle of threads. And instead I figure out this satin structure will fit next to this twill structure, and this one will be lighter and this one will be darker. And so that's how I start to sort of figure out how I'm going to weave the image.
None of that makes sense, but I really admire it. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That just proves like how hard this is to do. So I appreciate it. But if people are interested, it sounds like, you guys do open studios occasionally. You're available for a studio visit, I assume. So people should definitely reach out because that's a whole conversation.
Well, yeah, I love when people want to learn about the loom. It's always exciting. So I'm happy
That's awesome.
to do it.
It seems like you do a lot of residencies. Maybe that's your Sag moon, like wanting to travel the world.
Yeah.
Have you ever done the Blonduist textile residency? Do you know about that one? In Iceland, there's a really good textile residency in the north of Iceland that you should check out. But
I had applied and gotten in, and then COVID hit. And then we never sort of rescheduled from there.
got it.
I got my own loom. I didn't have my own loom yet, and it's actually on the list of things to someday circle back to, but haven't yet.
Oh, cool. But it sounds like you've been recently maybe to the Netherlands, or like what have you done recently, I guess is a better question.
The most recent official residency was Yaddo, which is in upstate New York, and was amazing, really amazing residency. I highly recommend if you've been considering it and not trying to do it. It felt really amazing to be there. I love the cohort. The space is beautiful. I was really inspired up there, and actually am now starting to work on a new series based off of the images I took up there.
So cool.
I feel like a lot of times I don't have a loom when I'm at residencies generally to work on. And so for me, it's really this like moment of research and reset. And so I find it really generative. I really like the really intensive time I have in my studio where I weave all day, every day. And then I'm sort of forced to leave and like reset and kind of dream in a different way, and then come back and sort of output again.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've heard about the Yaddo. I've heard it's pretty haunted up there.
So haunted. There are so many ghosts. I already believed in ghosts, but I've never experienced like this much like physical paranormal activity in my life. And so is everyone else there, but they're friendly. They're really nice.
Is it like you can only be an exclusive Yaddo member to know about the ghost stories, or was there anything?
No, everyone knows all about all of these ghosts. But yeah, no, I mean, like locked doors opening and closing on their own as if like you're in an Addams Family scene, or things like that, where it feels really friendly. Like I was never scared, They don't feel malicious. I think they're like stoked we're making art up there and like using the space how it was meant to be, or they hoped it would be used.
Which,
The
on that
yeah.
note, you're in the American Industrial Building. Is that what it's called? Or in LA? What Allied Crafts Building? I feel like there are some ghosts in that building encouraging people to do textiles because
Oh, that's
everyone I've talked to who goes to that building doing something else ends up doing textiles. Have you noticed that?
love to be in. Yeah, I mean, part of it was like I specifically got a weaver in here. Like I have a really good friend whose studio building was closing right when I found my studio. And there was a bigger studio next door that was too much space for me, but I know she was looking with a friend. And I was like, and so we've slowly been sort of building out our textile club.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like you guys had an open studio in November, and I went through and was like talking to a lot of people, and everyone's like, well, I'm a painter and I'm a sculptor, but I've gotten super excited about textiles since moving here. And everybody's like, oh, well, it used to be like a sweatshop, like a clothing factory. And so the whole kind of running joke as I went through the different levels was like, there's some kind of ghost here trying to be like, everybody work in textiles, you will, or maybe it's the energy, like the residual energy of the building, or
That's true. But also, like this neighborhood, there's, you know,
yeah, you're in the fashion district.
health everywhere. But I also think that textiles are like kind of contagious.
Hmm.
It's a really exciting medium. I think that we also are all craving softness right now in the world in a really different, and this is like powerful softness, you know,
Mm-hmm.
how softness can have agency. But I also think that I think in when a lot of people are trained, if they're trained in fine art, not all of the places they had training have textile programs or ones that are easy to jump into if you're not part of that department. And so it's just like another material that once you kind of see it around, you want to play with. Kind of like when I go see a bunch of paintings, I really want to try to paint. And then I like remember that I don't.
Right. And that's how I feel.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's like really nice to have that sort of shared energy in the building and seeing like how everything sort of cross pollinates.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. I mean, and it made me curious, like what work I would make had I ever moved into the building. But um, I know that maybe one day, I mean, we'll see. My life is a complete mystery at this point. But I wanted to see like what you had coming up, like where people can find you, what you got in the works.
Oh, yeah, it's already March, isn't it?
It sure is.
March.
Hello. I mean, what?
I know.
Yeah, crazy.
But let's see. So I have work going to Eric Firestone, which is a gallery in New York that is
Cool.
opening, which I'm really excited
Wait,
about
you said next week?
next week, I believe, or the week after. Today's the 5th.
What's the date so people can look?
I have to look, but I believe it's the 13th or the 13th. So
Okay.
yeah, today in New York. And then I also have a show, works headed to Hastings Contemporary, which is an institution in the UK that I'm really excited about. It's a show called Undersea, and it's sort of about these how different moments of water. And I have works from my Siren series headed there, which I'm really really thrilled for. So I'm really excited for both. They're really different shows. One is like about these sort of really dreamy mythological uh, sirens that I was weaving, you know, works. And then the show at Eric Firestone is called Erotic City. And it's these really intimate works and these crops of bodies that are a little bit abstracted in the way that we can like hold ourselves and hold each other. So I'm thrilled to be around this March.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What a great time to be in New York and showing your work. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
for the show, we'll see. But
Are you gonna go, you said?
I might go. I have I'm the maid of honor for a wedding, and I think I have a dress fitting I need to be in New York for. So it actually lines up.
Oh, but it's a group show, it sounds like then, not.
These are
Yeah.
both.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome. So everybody look out for that. And then miaweiner.com/Instagram, similar handle, I assume.
My name, Mia Weiner.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the Side Woo. And yeah, I love staring at your work all day or during our conversation. It was like a nice little backdrop to like kind of what we're talking about. And just, I liked what you said about soft power. I feel like that's something we can all take with us as we go into this hellscape timeline that we're living in.
Lot more agency than I think we give ourselves. So it's time to remember that. And we
Heck
can do
yeah.
what we want to. So let's go.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mia.
You.
Bye. That's all for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. This was your host, Tebow, with sound editing help by Natasha Lowy. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend, write us a review, and give us 5 stars for good karma points. To watch along, subscribe to our YouTube channel and see all of our videos and live talk recordings there. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time on The Side Woo.